Good morning and welcome back. It's still Morning at NTV. Like we promised you, we have the National Council of Sport General Secretary, Dr. Patrick Bernard-Ogwell. We'll apologize, we're starting a little bit late, but the good thing, the doctor is here and he's going to be explaining lots about the National Council of Sport. So we're talking sport this morning. I'm Elvis Senono, and good morning, Doctor. Welcome to the NTV studios and Morning at NTV.
My pleasure to be here again. I think this is my third appearance, and I want to extend my appreciation to all the viewers of this show. Okay,
we'll get into the thick of the action already, because you are a man in the hot seat. You've been a man in the news, we've been to Parliament, all over. There have been accusations flying around from the federations. First of all, for the benefit of our viewer, what is the role of the National Council of Sport?
Precisely, the role of the National Council of Sports, as enacted by Act of Parliament 1964, is to promote and develop all forms of sports in Uganda on behalf of government. We have two roles we perform. We regulate the activities of sport development in the country, especially the National Sport Federation, in line with the statutory instrument number 38 of 2014 on rules and regulations, which emphasize compliance. Two, we are the arm of government that is supposed to be offering strategic direction in the development of sport in the country. Also ensuring that the citizens of this country are planned for in terms of sport development agenda, because sport is a human right. And government has an obligation to ensure that each citizen enjoys sport. So that is basically the cutting role we do. You mentioned about me in the news. Firstly, it is important also to be in the news. Sometimes it is historic, for good reason. Sport is a very volatile subsector world over, where everybody else outside is a judge. And our performance as a country, maybe in the past, did not create that visibility. My administration and council has created a lot of visibility, and we have rebranded sports in this country to the extent that the whole world now looks at us. We have captured the whole world at a ransom in terms of performance. That has created envy, that has created attention. But of importance, government has given us attention and prioritized and supported us in the recent 3 financial years. I can say we have come of age to the extent that we have started to address strategically the development pathways for this country, aligned to the National Development Plan of this country, which perhaps in the past was not so much emphasized. I want to also say very proudly that it is during my time that we were able to produce the first strategic development plan aligned to the National Development Plan of Uganda and approved by the National Planning Authority.
So previously, sport wasn't considered in the National Development Plan?
Sport was considered, but in terms of strategic direction, we never had certification from the National Planning Authority. But it's during my time, and we have a license, meaning that whatever we do at council now is strategically guided in terms of answering the National Development Plan of this country. And it is clearly defined in our strategic direction the contribution of sports to national development. Now this is what comes as areas of action for National Council of Sports. That's why at the end of the day, when we made our justification for funding, we were able to move, and in the last financial year, you saw, we jumped 130%, which was very abnormal to many.
Yeah, I was one of those who celebrated personally from the sports subsector moving from about 17 billion to about reported 47 billion. But that picture has also since changed. Is it true?
Very, very much. I can assure you, one of the challenges you have mentioned, why there's a lot of issues on council, is because once the budget was increased, it arose a lot of attention, but also brought happiness. Because in the past, we were not even considered that much. So everybody now felt like, I think we are arriving where we want, because as council, we knew we are now able to address the needs of the various sport federations. Unfortunately, as I talk now, we are in the third quarter of government, but the releases from the Ministry of Finance, Plan and Economic Development is at 49%.
From the first
49% instead of 75%. Oh. Now, the remaining half, if I'm to be very specific, I'm expecting in the fourth quarter of government 24.3 billion Uganda shillings, which may not happen. Look at the statistics of the releases. And that's why when you want to ask me why federations are up in arms, they fail to understand and appreciate the challenges of council, the challenges of government. You recall a moment when in the second quarter, at the beginning, I had to request for a meeting with the Secretary of Treasury, and there was a joint meeting between presidents and the PSST in the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Finance, Plan and Economic Development. It was part of the reason because I felt, having come of age, first quarter released, in total we had 7.8, of which sports was allocated 7.1. The 7.1 was also restrictive to major games. At that time we had the Commonwealth budget, which was about 4.8 billion. And we also had the Islamic Solidarity Games, which had a budget of 1.9 billion. Now when you wrap up those, you find definitely in that quarter one, none of the federations' allocation was issued. Now that was the beginning of the problem.
Yeah, but Doctor, before...
Quarter two, let me finish that part. We got 2.3 billion. Now you tell me 51 federations, and you are getting 2.3 billion. But along the way, because council had already prioritized key activities in quarter one, some of which could not be postponed. World Athletic Championship in Oregon, where the Johnstons will defend their title. Rugby Sevens World Cup in South Africa. Basketball in Kigali, and also in Madagascar. And among others, you find we had to defer payments in line with the law. But now, those were the key beginning problems of council. Because other than the people who are in the government, there are people who don't understand how government system runs. But it is about prioritization and of issues of national importance.
Maybe someone might say games like the Islamic Solidarity Games are not that important. Maybe we are getting priorities wrong.
I want to say, as a country, there are 5 key sport events where Uganda participates as a country. And I want to remind you, many Ugandans doesn't know that Uganda is an Islamic state. Maybe you need to emphasize that in your following show. As an Islamic state, we are signatory to the world body. But among the key activities that define our membership is participation activities. And we choose sports among others. And I can assure you we have been participating in World Islamic Solidarity Games before. But the magnitude of support could have been low. But if you go to the history, it's not the first time we have been there. Now, it is one of the important virtues of council. And by the way, in terms of the prioritization, the major sport events is number 1 on that priority list of funding. Now, you want to know these major sport events. We have Olympics, which you know by its importance is the apex of any sport event, and we would want as a country to present our athletes. The second one is the Paralympic Games. We take care of the people with disability, and they're very important. The third one is Commonwealth Games. As a Commonwealth member, we are bound to participate. And you know, about 74, 75 Commonwealth nations. And you know our story and history of performance in that. The other one is African Games. African Games, by its virtue, which is under the auspices of the African Union Sports Commission, require all the independent states, especially after the colonization, to participate in those events. And as a country, those are the core 3. And for information, it's the reason why His Excellency the President gave much more attention on his own as the fountain of honor to provide what we call monthly stipend to those athletes who excel and win gold, silver, and bronze. And this money is being paid by the State House. Yes. And this has started since 2013.
Because we've had athletes come to us and...
I can assure you this money is paid directly to the athlete's account. It's not coming through federation, neither through National Council of Sports, neither through the ministry. And I can assure you, if I give you statistics, athletes have been getting this money. The only challenge we have, it sometimes doesn't come so handy. In the quota system, it can delay, and perhaps that is the reason for some of the arrears. But nevertheless, these funds have been channeled through State House.
Okay, then there on the screen is a breakdown of the money that goes to the various, has gone to the various federations. What is the criteria that you use to distribute this money to the federations? Several federations have come out to accuse you as National Council of Sport of favoring some and well, overlooking the others. And the accusation mainly is about football. Why do you give football a lot of money, a large chunk of the money directed to the sports sector?
Firstly, I want to appreciate that as a country, every financial year of government, their prioritization as a country. And when the Honorable Minister of Finance, Plan and Economic Development is addressing the nation on our budget, you note that the government always aligns itself to the priorities of that financial year in terms of government agenda for development. They don't read each and every ministry as important. So in sports subsector, we also prioritize key activities of national importance. I start with the other case you mentioned for the case of football. I think football, number one, is one of the popular sports in the country. True. There are a lot of justification, but I think FIFA leadership made a special case, an appeal through the president. And I remember I was part of that delegation in Roketura on 2nd January 2018, where President promised to resolve that matter. And it became one through a supplementary budget in that financial year, 2017-18, where 15 billion was released. And out of that, we could not even utilize all the money. We only utilized 13.560. But out of that budget, FIFA was able to be funded. And the following year, an instruction came from the Treasury, which by law is what the votes has to respect, directing us to prioritize FIFA and allocate them 10 billion as allocation from council, from what has been allocated.
So it is not your decision as national.
It's not my decision, the decision of government. And that is what I can say strongly. I have an instrument from the Secretary of Treasury. Now, the other key issues you need to know.
Do you explain that to the other federations?
I have even given them copies. And I can give you a copy as well. Two, every quarter of government, I would say, government define the priorities of the allocation. The Secretary to the Treasury, who is the permanent secretary as well, Minister of Finance, Plan and Economic Development, always provide guidance. This guideline is law to the votes to the accounting officers to implement. Now, in that you find issues of national importance are emphasized. And as a subsector, we should be able to know what comes first and what comes last. For example, for us, what comes first under the major games component is our preparation to participate in the major games, where we have to support activities of national sport federations. Now we have 2024 Paris Olympic Games. We have 21 sport disciplines who are supposed to be fast track. You note that they need to be supported to qualify their athletes, to qualify their teams, and they're competing with the rest of Africa and the rest of the world to get the points that would rank them to qualify, because some of the events are competed for at the level of the continent, where International Sports Federation would say the best 4 teams in every continent qualifies for the Olympics. Now, if as a government we don't support such defined federations, there's obvious thought that they will not make it, and therefore as a country would have failed government not to present a team. Now, those become the other priority of support. That's why you don't see that figure consistent, where a federation is being given the same amount of money, each federation. No. 2 is the volume of the activity. For example, the individual disciplines. For example, athletes are going to participate in an event. There cannot be a team of 70. Maybe football is going to AFCON, they need 60 people. But athletes will take maybe 20-something. So it varies. So the volume of the national teams presentation. But more importantly, we also address ourselves to other important matter, because as council, we are able to prioritize sports. There are those sports disciplines that come first before others. Out of the 51 you are seeing there, we have 11 disciplines now in our categorization. They are priority sports. Now, what is required of council is to ensure that those priority sports are supported. Now, the challenge is, because of the inadequate funding, this is where the big quarrel comes.
Yeah, that's where I was
The
heading.
inadequate funding, sometimes they release this. Like this quarter, I'm going to give an example. This very quarter, we are expecting 18.6 billion. For your information.
For this quarter?
Yeah, we're expecting, I'm not very sure. But what I can tell, yeah, in terms of the expectation we had, we're expecting much more money in terms of releases.
For this particular quarter?
I think about 14 billion for federations. But
then
what has come from Treasury actually is 298 million. Now, 298 million, by any standard, can only sponsor one team for a trip.
Then how do you deal with the cuts?
Now,
that means
this is only part of the cut in the government system. And you see with the Treasury, they release based on the cash flow of government. Because we are a cash economy. And everybody should understand that this is our country. And therefore must also appreciate the challenges of a government. And we have just come out from COVID, and we're looking forward to stabilize the economy. And this demands joint efforts. Now, Treasury has its own guidelines to bring stability. For your information, just immediately after COVID, government experienced high rates of inflation. I don't know whether you are aware about that. There was high inflation in the economy. So that to reduce expenditure in order to stabilize and address that challenge, which is a very serious cancer in an economy. Now, government was fighting head-on economic recovery just coming out of COVID. Then high inflation comes in. Then again, businesses, which were already in the process of recovery, could not mobilize all the revenue of government because we actually rely much more on the tax collection. So in that regard, you will not make a very Tom, Dick, and Harry happy. And that is the beginning of my problem.
Then you've also been accused of having ghost federations.
I don't want to think that we have a ghost federation. What we only need to understand...
Someone has been asking, what does the American Football Federation do?
I can assure you, American Football Federation have just participated in African qualifier between Kenya and Uganda. Away game. They've participated in Nairobi, and they hosted actually in Legends. You see, you know what I wanted you to note is that we may not have federations at the same level of development. Like I can tell you football. Football, where I have served also, has 63 permanent staff. Now, you cannot say football can be rated at the same level like you can mention a sport.
American football.
American football. Because there are different levels of development. But as council, there are parameters for registration that would require anybody who wants to be part of a federation to meet certain standards. Now, I want you to note that sport like American football are new sport in the country. Not grounded like others. When was football founded in Uganda? You would want to know? You'd want to know? In 1900 something.
Yeah.
1900, 304. By Kabaka Chua, I am told.
Yes.
So when you look at that the kind of history and kind of what that sport offered in the country, you'll find at that time there were few sports being promoted by the government. Now, that therefore creates that kind of challenges in terms of who is bigger than the other. But as a council, we don't have any write-up about ghost and all that. We don't have.
Then, Dr. Ogwell,
they may appear to be not that strong in terms of the scope of operation, but we recognize them because what is key is that as a country, we want to feel happy to give opportunity to all the citizens to enjoy a sport of their choice. It is, by the way, constitutional right because sport is a human right. You may not be good in cricket, but you may be good in
Rugby.
Something. And that is how it comes. So when you meet the requirement as set out in the law, our compliance there's a particular criteria for registration. I can share with you that, which is provided for under SI number 38 of 2018, Rules and Regulations of Council.
Then, Doctor, we cannot leave this discussion without me telling you of the accusation labeled against National Council of Sport that you misuse sports facilities. Case in point, the hockey ground. The other is the cricket oval. People say it has more music concerts than the cricket itself. And then they'll go indoor arena. How true is that?
I would want to say, firstly, that could be opinion of subscribers. But as a country and as council, firstly, we need to accept that we have limited sport facilities.
True.
And their state may not be that very advanced to accommodate all our needs. Now, I want to start with the issue of the Lugogo Indoor Stadium. That stadium was built in 1957. And you know the population of Uganda at that time, they were less than 6 million. Because by independence, Uganda population was only 6.5 million. Me, I'm a researcher. That's what I can educate you on. Now, that means at that time, that was what was available for the country. And that was what could be used for all indoor sport. But as of date, the population of Uganda is over 40 million. You would want to see that there is going to be pressure. Now, all the indoor sports want to use the same facility. But what we have done at council, we have user guidelines. And that give prioritization on first come, first serve. There's booking which is done formally. Now, we have also made a provision this time around. We have standby generator. That standby generator is now able to accommodate even games under floodlights for those federations' activities who can fall. But still, in terms of capacity, it's a big challenge. You have talked about hockey stadium, you have talked about cricket stadium facility. I want to assure you, one, all the facilities at council, in its very nature, are sources of revenue for government in terms of non-tax revenue. And we have actually submitted this detail to Minister of Finance among the sources of revenue. In other words, we contribute, I want them to complete, we contribute 781. In the past, we are contributing about 1 billion shillings before COVID. Now, this money is going direct to the consolidated account. And I want to make this very clear. Some people have suspicion that these monies are paid to the General Secretary, we eat the money. This money goes directly to the consolidated account. Actually, it's paid through a Uganda Revenue Authority web portal. So at the end of the day, the guidelines for use of our facilities are defined formally. And whoever wants to use the facility applies. And then within our framework and structure, we have business and investment unit who handles the issue of booking and allocation and confirmation. But Doctor, now, I wanted to go exactly to the point you wanted to.
Doctor, you've been part of some federations in the past. Imagine you do not get money from government. Say we've suffered the budget cuts that the sector is going through at the moment. You do not get any money from government, and then you have to pay for the one facility that you want to use.
I want to tell you, council provide those facilities to all national teams. All national teams use the facility for free. Not even one coin is paid. You can tell me which federation present a national team of Uganda, and then we charge them. By regulation of council, we offer free. Now, there are other programs of federations like the league. And for your information, I know you are a follower of most of these sports. You get to know that we demand what we call just what I would call some resources for facilitating utility cost. Because if we don't do that, the allocation of government will not enable us to pay water bills, electricity bills. Because when people are too many, they use a lot of those facilities. Now, we give some moderate figures, and these are defined by council resolution, which is moderate. But again, I want to tell you, are you aware that the federations, they come and charge, they make money, 15 million, 20 million, they collect money using a government facility. It is part of the contribution we make. Although they don't want to declare that to you and to the public. But for us, we know that is a contribution. And I can assure you elsewhere, there is no facility which is used for free. I want to answer this question you mentioned about cricket and hockey stadium, because that is a critical issue for me. We have a policy that requires federations to book. And once facilities are booked, like this January, we expect the bookings schedules for federations to be submitted to us. We have a black book where this is supposed to be actually recorded and booked for those days. We have been doing this before, but the whole of last year, cricket, for example, did not submit. They were doing what we call ambush booking. They wait when the event is a week or two, then they say, we have this event, council, can you give us facility? Now you find, because the NTR source of government, the BAU unit are out there to wait for anybody who may have an activity to utilize the ground. So those exceptional cases where you find collusion comes in, and it's regrettable. But I can tell you as a General Secretary, my priorities, which is a primary mandate of Council, is to put agenda for sports as #1. It is primary, not secondary. Now, we have had several meetings, and we have now reconciled. And as I talk now, cricket has already submitted their planned activities for this year. I want you to tell me at a point that we have failed to provide the venues according to. Two, we have reduced on the consistency of the use by other service providers. Because you remember, sometimes you have like 2 shows. We have said every month, we want to see if it is one show or even a no show, if a sport activity is going on. That's our priority.
Then, Doctor,
now, we will not close shop when we don't hire those facilities. But we will be very excited when we have cricket activities running. So it's about understanding and cooperating and ensuring that the bookings are done, and then you can see how to blame us. Then the same for stadium.
Then as we wrap it up, Doctor, you've been accused of being too powerful at National Council, that you intimidate the other federations. The Boxing Federation and the Netball Federation have accused you publicly.
I think maybe those federations have their own problem, peculiar problem. Firstly, I'm a gentleman. I'm also a very educated man. And 2, I'm aware and cognizant that I'm holding a public office that requires certain standards. And for people who are around me like you, you know I'm a very good man. And that's my virtue. I'm a very generous person. I'm a very approachable person. I'm the 15th General Secretary. There are General Secretaries who came before me. Seeing them, you'd apply. But me, you cannot go and apply to see me. You can meet me in the corridor, you can meet anywhere. Now, there could be issues that rotate about their belief about me. The way they do their things, and the way I also want things to be done as the accounting officer, as General Secretary. 2, I'm the chief implementer of government programs in National Council Sports and council resolutions, policies, and government laws. Now, sometimes you find you are able to execute your duties, and somebody is not happy with your performance. I'm asking for accountability. I've given you money. You don't want to account for government money. I have the law which requires me to file my reports to the Treasury within 60 days. And you have kept the accounts of government. You have not provided information. And I'm writing to you one letter. I write to the second reminder. You are quiet. How do you interpret that one to be arrogant? By me writing to you? I think between me and you know very well, I've never gone to the media to attack, to accuse any sport leader. If I have it, I should be notified. In fact, I can assure you, my principle of work is team building. And that's why I've moved council from where it was today. I'm among the best performing agents of government. When I join in there, you need to do a fast track of my performance. Even where I've worked. At the university, I was voted the best lecturer, where I've been lecturing for over 10 years. In the FIFA, you know my role. In the basketball, you know I left 1 billion there. When I left, there was nothing. You've not been following that. So I'm a hard-working person who is result-oriented. And I have always something I set as my standard. So in terms of performance, I think the challenges come right because of people not appreciating the work dynamics of government and council. For me, if you are accountable, you're my friend.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Patrick Bernard-Oguel, for your time on Morning at NTV. Probably we'll have more time. You'll grant us more time sometime later to discuss more what is happening at council and in sport generally in the country. On behalf of Chris Higenyi and Priscilla Naroga, I'm Elvis Senono. That's